I just wanted, because I know that the Met Office has been a favourite target here tonight. I'll just finish up with one little example of the kind of hypocrisy that politicians and indeed the Met Office are quite capable of. I had to attend one of my last functions before I was moved from environment into finance. People thought that first of all they all called for me to get sacked, and then when I got moved to finance, they were raging because I saw this promotion, and now I can delve in everybody's department and see just what they're spending on all of this nonsense. But anyhow, I was asked the environment ministers from across the United Kingdom had a meeting in Jersey, to discuss climate change. So we all flew to Jersey. The main item on the agenda was a talk by a senior official from the Met Office who was going to tell us how bad things were going to get, and actually that they'd under-predicted the rise in temperature, and that if we didn't take action much more quickly, by 2050, world temperatures would not have increased by 2 degrees, but by 3.7 degrees or whatever it was. And we left the hotel in the morning, and we were going to, it was very, very lovely setting in a castle at the other side of the island, so they decided to give us a tour of the island, which was very nice, and the Jersey government laid this on. So he and I and the Environment Minister from Wales, Ian Davidson, were in the back of this car, which just happened to be a Daimler. One of these big Daimlers that you use for weddings that do about 8 miles to the gallon. And as we drove around, we discussed the influence of CO2 on climate change without the least hint of irony. Though I made sure that they did see the irony of it before we got to the journey's end. And as he talked about and he said, you know, Sammy, and he was actually from Northern Ireland, seemed a very genuine guy. He said, Sammy, you know, if you realised and knew what I knew about what's happening in the future, you wouldn't take the stance you did. And Jane Davidson was telling me about how she travels to the Welsh Parliament one day a week on her push bike. I told her she'd have to travel on her push bike for about 10 years after this to atone for her carbon climate sins in Jersey alone. But anyhow, I said to him, well, tell me this. You've told us you're going to tell us what happens in 2050. How is it that you've got the barbecue summer wrong this year? Or the winter? Last winter was supposed to be one of the warmest winters. It was one of the coldest. Hence the reason why councils didn't stock up on salt. 2007 was going to be the warmest winter, and we actually lost all of the increase in temperature for the last 100 years in that year. Do you use the same model for those short-term predictions as you use for the long-term predictions? Yes, we do. Well, if you can't get it right 5 months ahead, how do you hope to get it right 50 years ahead? Now, and this is the most bizarre thing, the Met Office claim that it is easier to predict with all of the variations and all of the variables that you have been discussing today. It is easier to predict 50 years ahead than it is 5 months ahead. Now, I think that is why people will become increasingly cynical. I also believe why it is important that conferences like this and the organisation behind it keep on plugging. That first of all, there is no scientific consensus. That secondly, there are other explanations for what happens in climate. And thirdly, that on the basis of the scientific evidence which there is, we should not be spending billions of money on a problem which, if the politicians of today get it wrong, they're not going to be here in 50 years' time to give the electorate an answer. Thank you.